I think it's a little bit of like a utopia. It's, I don't see. I think it's gonna be, yeah. It looks very nice on book, but there are like so many changes in the since like this book was published, and I think like there are like a lot of industries that they are like emerging, and
So
it
let's.
doesn't require.
So where's the This is like a little bitty. It was like a circle. Where is the circle? I think it's chapter 5. Where is the circle? It's right here. Boom. Okay. So if you go to like chapter, excuse me, if you go to page 127.
Yeah.
And so one argument that he makes essentially, and we can get started.
Yeah, it's better because otherwise when I got repeat again.
Yeah. So one argument that he makes is that technology, it's finite, right? Because generally technology, you can all you have to do is unplug something, right? And so he says he talks about where and it was chapter 4, and he was saying how we can become very technologically dependent, but if technology, something happens to technology, we're going to need to resort back to the natural resources. That's what he calls it. So he says, so like information, no, right here. So it says the cycle of foundation of wealth. And then he says slavery and human labor, right? And so you think about what happened with the slaves, and they had cotton, right? And then eventually the cotton gin came about, right? Which pushed it into mass production, right? And that's where you have technology and the information and manipulation of symbols, right? That is, obviously, cotton was used for, that was their justification for slavery in most cases, right? Because they needed it economically in order to survive. And so whether they acknowledged slaves as human beings, they still needed their 100% hard work and ethic, right? And then the natural resources, which is like the land, the power, the wealth, right? He talks about how, if the technology piece gets cut off, if we take advantage of the natural resources as Black people, we can be more competitive since we own the land and the precious resources. I thought that was a little bit far-fetched because now, we need technology just to survive in the pandemic, right? So obviously, I don't see technology going away, because that was his argument.
Yeah, that where I was a little bit shocked about what he was saying because the experts are mentioning that there is no way back from technology, especially where technology has been implemented right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the US or in Europe, we're not going to see a U-turn going back to living in farms. At least like there is a catastrophe happening and then, we have to start from zero. But that scenario, it is almost like it's not going to happen. So for him to, spend so much time in this type of like theory, it just take the purpose of the whole, chapter, because it's coming from a point of view that I don't believe he had facts to sustain that theory. So if you push people for the land and for, they will need to have technology. For example, like if you have land and you have solar panels, you may make more money than actually having like any other type of like agriculture, because we are in a globalized, world. So it doesn't, everything that he said, and that is what I don't like about this book, is like he is not an expert on this. I mean, he's an economist, right? Was
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
So I don't know when was the last time that he did a refresh on his knowledge or like try to listen to other people, because technology is where the money is right now. And if you blindside a community that is struggling, telling them, don't worry about technology, be focused on the land. I don't think you are doing a good favor, because you actually need to focus in everything. And human labor, it is something that, so I'm more pro like, okay, you can get land, but it really depends what that land can provide you. If you cannot have agriculture, or you cannot have like sunshine, and then what you have the land for? You need to think about like what kind of industry could work on that land. And then human labor, that is like what it is in danger right now, because we are being replaced by machines. I don't know if it is happening in Detroit, but here in London, you go to a supermarket and the cashiers are a machine. So you go with your own card and you do like everything. So in a normal supermarket, you may have like 20 machines. Usually that was like 20 people or at least 10 people's job, and has been taken out and is not replaced. So labor that doesn't require a higher qualification is being taken off. There are not that many. And that happened, the same thing that happened with the Industrial Revolution. A lot of jobs were taken and replaced by machines. And now what we have is like a pool of people that they don't have the qualification, they don't have like the knowledge for you to push it to another industry. And that is the problem that is going to happen. And it's going to be minorities, the groups that they are going to be most affected. So yeah, how you're going to plan to like get the land if you don't have the wealth? It's just, and we talked about that before. So that's why like sometimes it's, I love this book, but there are some things that I can't. Yeah, I disagree. Like right now, cryptocurrency is moving a lot of money, and you didn't have to have like a lot of money to be trading.
Yeah.
It is decentralized, which means that everybody can have access to it. But you still need to have the knowledge. You still need to know what is a cryptocurrency, what kind of like in what platform you can trade. Even if you have $3 or $4, you can start moving that. However, this is like also kept from people that they don't have the knowledge. And it is like, and especially cryptocurrency, it has been moving like, like my friends will tell me, I will tell my friends. So word of mouth, that is how the whole system has been working. And obviously this was true, this has been happening like 10 years after he wrote the book. That technology wasn't even in someone's mindset at the moment, probably only the person who was creating it. But that is another technology that is creating a lot of opportunities, and also like every community should be taking care of it and taking a look into it.
So let's go to the hydroponic example, where it's in page 157. Actually, no, it's the textile example. So it's the leather example. I'm sorry. So it's 172 to 173. And then he has the picture. So one thing I would acknowledge that you already pointed out is that it's kind of like this is also blueprint, but it's also his vision. And Dr. Claud Anderson is known for like creating like frameworks that can be very hypothetical. And I would say, because he does have references, majority of them is rooted in fact, but obviously all of it is not, obviously all of it isn't going to be, not all of it's going to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So just looking at that model that he has for like the leather. So he talks about how we as Black people, we should take over abandoned industries, right? And so industries like tactile industry. And I started thinking about like how we're now starting going from gas to electric, right? And gas is such a huge commodity here, and majority of them isn't Black owned, especially in Detroit. I can see people converting to electric cars, right? And doing those electric stations. And then and essentially what he's suggesting is that, to make the example concrete, is that we take over the gas stations, right? And because the competition is going to start going towards the the electric component, then we become a monopoly, quote unquote, right? And we get to take advantage of that market that was a predominant market, but no longer. And then he says we create a vertical integration off of that. Do you think that, you don't think that's applicable?
No. You know how much it would cost for people to like start owning gas stations when everything is going electric? And then what do you do with it? In 10 years or 15 years, when all the cars are electric, where is your asset? What is your ROI? What is your return from like putting money? If people is leaving that industry, it is because it's no longer profitable. No one is going to leave. This is a little bit of like what Trump was doing with the coal mines, you know, and he was just going to white, low class communities that they had been left out, you know, and they were unemployed, and they were saying, I'm going to open for you, da da da. And then he tried to do it, fail. Why? Because no one wants coal anymore, obviously. And this is exactly what he is saying. This is exactly what he is saying. So you can know if I am making money, why I will leave something that I'm making money. I'm not stupid. If I'm a business person, if I'm a corporation, if I'm moving and I'm leaving and I'm selling, it is because I'm going to the next thing. So I think it's setting up for failure for minorities to like get the crumbles of like something that is going to last like 10 years. And then how you get rid of that. You are not making that much profit, and you will be always late because you won't be able to catch up with the next technology. So no, I don't have to him.
I love it. All right, Dr. Claud Anderson. This is Powernomics, lead or follow, Teach Simple collaboration. We're reading Powernomics, the blueprint, national plan for empowering Black people. I got my sister Laura Legros with us today. Yeah, I think we started off really, really, really good, and I appreciate your honesty. We are on chapter 5. I would say we kind of started at chapter 6. And we're really just questioning, like, is this stuff possible, right? Is it applicable? This book was written in what, 2005?
Yeah.
So was that 15 years ago?
More than 15 years, right? Yeah, 16 years.
16 years ago, right? And so we're literally just taking out, putting in what works, taking out what we don't think works. And we still love Dr. Claud Anderson because he is a brother man, but we definitely want to make sure we don't lead people the wrong way. So you don't believe that alternative economies exist, right? Because if you think about it, right, he says Blacks need an alternative economy. Then he always, he's going to definitely talk about different immigrants, right? And he says, how does vertical chains of obligation work in the real world? It established the ability to exploit niche markets. An incident between Asian merchants and Black suppliers in Chinatown. That's not what I wanted to read. Hold up. Here it is. Okay, so if you go to page 132, and he says the most common tactic that Asians, Hispanics, and other ethnic groups use to build alternative economies and achieve competitive advantages in their community marketplace. And then he lists the list. So I want us to kind of just go through this, and I want you to tell me if any of this is, what do you think is like real?
This is again him, putting the migrants as like, people who come here with a super plan and they execute it. It's not that way. It doesn't. A migrant community doesn't establish like that. Low wage jobs, and that is like one of the things, the first one, it is because there is no other opportunity, and you need to create income to feed your family. And there is a big difference. The migrant community also send money to their families abroad, which is a totally different scenario. That is not the case of the African American community. They are sending money like to places like Haiti or like Philippines or like, any place in Latin America, Nigeria, Ghana. So not only they're sustaining their own family at home, but they have to like help to their family abroad. So
Hmm.
that's like one of the things that he obviously doesn't have any knowledge of, like why a migrant community established themselves like that. So low wage job is because first of all, they don't speak the language. They don't speak the language or they don't have qualifications that they are validated in the country. That's why you get a low wage job. I took a low wage job and I had a low degree, but my English wasn't that good. And here they are very picky. So I wasn't able. And I was like working in retail for the first year that I came here to London. If I was in my country, I wouldn't have to do that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that is like one of the things like I don't go and take that lower job because I'm creating this master plan. It is because I need to survive. It's a big difference. And then he said, like,
Go ahead.
taking business school resources and start their own business. They are not going to hire them. They are not going to hire them. So it is easier to get like a little store, convenience store, or like maybe some services. A lot of like most of the migrants, they have like cleaning jobs. Who are
Mhm.
the people who clean the hospitals? Who are the people who are cleaning the streets? Most of the times here in Europe is the migrant community or like ex-convict or like people who actually didn't have access to any type of education. But you go ahead.
So let me ask you this. So what do you think about him comparing the income? So he said more specifically, he says what the article fails to address is why Black Americans were still fixed as the lowest income rung. More specifically, it should have addressed why Asians and Hispanics, 90% of whom have been in the United States less than 30 years, have a median income that is above a nearly double of Black population that has been here for over 400 years.
The problem, because it's you cannot compare apples and pears. Then I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of people that maybe can you hear me?
No, your likeness went down, so I couldn't really see you that much, but I can see you now.
Oh, okay. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. So yeah, what I was saying is like it's just different.
Yeah.
We talk about this like all the time. It is like one of the things like this is the sense of identity gives you the sense of community.
Hmm.
And that helps because you go to your local store. You go to your local store because they speak the language and they have your products. If you are from West Africa, you are looking for certain products.
Yeah.
Like same thing. So that dollar is bouncing. Then a lot of migrants they have problems with accommodation because a lot of people they don't allow migrants to to pay even rent. They don't want people that they don't speak English. So what happened is like someone they will live all in one house, okay, like maybe 9, 10 people, and
Right.
then that's how he's not talking about the struggle of like how that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying. And the thing is like I'm not going to build. And I'm saying like the African American story is totally different. The struggles are totally different. It is in the structure, which migrants they don't have. They have other challenges because they suffer racism all the
Right.
time
Yeah.
and like a lot of other challenges. But I think like the institutional racism works against the African American community that it doesn't have the same power with migrants. I think like that is the biggest difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happens is that, if you are I'm using oppressed, not to say like in a negative way, but disenfranchised, or like you said, you're trying to come up in capitalism. You know what I mean? From listening to what you're saying, you're just kind of like, it's just survival. And I think also you're saying is that the margins that they're probably making is not enough for us to think that it's like it's a master plan to disenfranchise Black people, when it's just like people are just struggling off capitalism, but they're mutually exclusive. And you're saying that it's a false comparison as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's my take on that, because I'm a migrant. I'm coming from a migrant family. And I'm also happen to be Black. I have like African American, and I see, and the pain is totally different. It is totally different. African Americans' trauma, it is totally different from someone from Haiti. And I'm not saying that one trauma is worse than other one.
Right.
Some people have seen like, hunger. Some people have seen like their family dying for like nothing, like because they couldn't go to the hospital, or like had been prosecuted or has been disappeared. There are like a lot of other things that African Americans doesn't have to live with all the time, but African American has to be, they are prosecuted. Is all the time like the police on their neck, the education system, the health system. So there is no money. It is what resolves everything. Well, it helps, but a lot of people go to the US and they're asylum seekers. They have seen death. They have been tortured. They have been raped. So they are coming with their own trauma too. And I don't think the book respects the identity of a migrant. And that part is a little bit hard for me to, I just would like for him to have like a little bit of, a bigger picture of like what is happening.
Yeah, it's a little xenophobic, and I say that to say because again, people use this book a lot to kind of divide Black people versus like traditional Black people, right, or immigrants. And he said the last point, he said avoids being identified with Blacks so that they can continue to benefit from dominant society hatred for Blacks. And I would say, with classism, right? We do that as well, right? Sometimes we try to make sure we get to a different class so we can have different benefits. And I think that isn't an immigrant problem. I think that's just a society problem as well. And I remember I was on Instagram, and this guy put up this very ignorant post, and essentially he was trying to talk about, because you know how like the quote unquote border crisis is now like a big problem when it was always a problem before, but they're trying to use it to kind of taint Biden's just overall plan, just trying to get us out.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of anti-immigrant stuff. And the guy pretty much was insinuating was that, that your stimulus, immigrants are getting stimulus checks, and your taxpayers get your money, your taxpayers' money is getting paid for that, right? Or whatever. And I responded, I was like, bruh, like this is, first of all, this is baseless, it's insensitive, and like you're just blaming the immigrant. And I was like, you're smarter than that. Like you're smart enough to know like it's bigger than that. It's way bigger than that. And unfortunately, a lot of people fall victim to that type of dogma.
And I think like this is, what is happening right now with the Asian community,
right.
The hate crimes that they are suffering. Like this is part of, because one of the things he said like, use language, religion, and culture to mark and close their communities. No, it is not to mark the community. It is like what make their community. The same culture and the same language. It is nothing to mark. If you go to Chinatown, it is because they do speak the same language, and they do have like probably the same religion, or at least the same culture background. It helps them to bring a business together. That's what happened. They are not creating a new language to speak code to make sure that they can establish like their business in one part of the city. So those type of like remarks, they are very dangerous.
They don't get us anywhere. Yeah, and they are dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. I love this. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Dope. So, let's see. Yeah, we've gone through a lot thus far. Let me see. Okay, so he talks about quid pro quo. And I actually kind of went past chapter 7, and he talks about how politics is the game, and how it's never I'm just giving you something and you don't give me nothing back. And he said in most cases, you generally, when you get something, you have to give something back. And he was criticizing Black Americans, saying that when we play politics, we generally don't have anything to give back. And he was comparing it to how other communities don't do that. Is that true? Would you say other communities are more politically aware and advantageous, and therefore that contributes to their how can I say? It allows them to live in capitalism a lot better, right? Because if you have I'm just asking. Um,
Yeah.
do you think, because so the argument is they got the money, right? So they have the money, then they can fund the politicians, then they can fund their initiatives, and then it's a whole nother cycle, right? But then they're
Yeah.
playing the politics while using that economic base that we have criticized, and why they need it, right? Because of survival and all the many other factors, right? But
Mhm.
what's your opinion on that?
So that's something very interesting because I met someone who works in the Capitol, and she explained. Well, we were like sharing ideas about like what it means like to have a lobby and all that. I do believe that this is my point of view from outside. Okay, politics. Well, every time that you how you say it, like you choose a president or your mayor or whatever, you are basically renewing a contract or changing a contract. All these governments or parties, they do have any type of like contracts with like corporations,
Hmm.
right? So it is, even it shouldn't be like that. It is what it is, and it is what it happened. I feel like politics in general are made for people not to trust, like to like just vote and move ahead, and
Hmm.
that's it. There is not like a lot of lessons about like how politics works. So it's not like only the vote. You should have like a lobby. You should have like an identity to push agenda and like to push legislations. I feel like probably in the last few years we have been learning more, and has been forced on us because we saw what happened with Trump election.
Right.
And I think like the US politics is fascinating for everybody outside because first of all, it's a show. And secondly, it's just like it is so evident and it's a lot of information coming left and right, and it's really American. Um, but then when you compare with like other places around the world, we don't see politics. It's slightly different, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. But it's not that obvious. So now, do I agree that the Black population in the U.S. has been used by every how you call that? Like not every government, every administration?
Okay.
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Why? Because every administration, the majority was white people that was like totally far away from the Black experience. So they were like doing and undoing policies, and they were not taking in consideration. And I'm not saying that they were racist, but they were not taking in consideration the Black population. Otherwise, the Black community would be way better off by 2021, and that has not happened because the policies has been like imposed against that community, not to help the community. Some like legislations like act of affirmations and all that has helped, but at the same time, if you are like criminalizing the community, that's not going to help.
Right.
So they're like, it's a contradiction in policies. You see policies that they were like made to help, and most of them they were or no acknowledging the Black community or actually trying to like not advance the Black community. And also, big thing is like when you see a Republican Party coming through, there is a lot of things that are undone. When it is Democrat Party, usually there are a lot of ideas at least put on the table and trying to push.
Yeah.
But it's like 2 step up, 2 step back every 8 years. So it is up to the Black community to actually take control at this point.
Let's talk about that. So, you brought up something that's really important. I think overall, we have to understand that so a bad economy affects anybody, right? Whether if you're a Republican or Democrat, right? It messes up any business, rather if you're a Democrat or a Republican, right? And kind of like going to what you were saying, I remember like when it's like whenever a Republican gets in office, we always get into a war. And then we spend all this money on the war, then we get in a bunch of debt, and then we get into a recession. And then they have to nominate a progressive or a Democrat who's like a moderate or whatever to get the economy back up. If the Republican gets back in, it fucks up the economy again. And then it does it again. And then it does it again. And then you got to ask yourself, how can you have any prominent small business, medium business, large business, right, and have a consistent margin with that type of dynamic that's present, including racism, sexism, everything that we all deal with our trauma. It's like, how can you even have Powernomics with
I feel like every economy
for anybody?
It's going to be like this. It's like a lifeline. You have like your lifeline is going to have like ups, downs, ups, downs. That's normal. Now, when are you be able to like get out of the risk, at least for 15 years with your business, is that you have to make the right decisions. There is a lot of people making hell a lot of money. You have Jay-Z, billionaire, P. Diddy, billionaire, Kanye West, billionaire, Elon Musk, the guy from Tesla, is a billionaire as well. There is a lot of people that they, Jeff, whatever name,
Bezos,
trillionaire, and these people started business within the last 20 years, and they were talking about billionaires. So I think like I could start a business now and probably make it profitable for the next 5 years. Like there are a lot of people that they are moving money and creating like different type of incomes. And I think like internet is providing us with a lot of flexibility in being more creative. There are a lot of things like they are moving away from brick and mortar. So basically everything that is physical, people is like moving away from that. However, there are like a lot of opportunities that are being open. So it is really up to us to jump on it and take the risk. But you're never going to be able to do that, like 100% sure return.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, I love this conversation because I feel like it's just we have to understand that we need both. We need everything, right? We need the small business. We also need the big business. We need you to be independently, right, and build your own government, but you also might need the government to assist with that, right? I feel like it all works together. There's no like, if, that or that. So for example, there are people that be like, you just need economic power, economics. If you have economic power, then you're free. Have you ever listened to Roland Martin?
I don't know.
Can I show you a video real quick?
Sure.
All right, so I'm gonna show you this video.
You gotta get out here and go and do it. So hold up. Hold up. So I'm just curious. So if somebody doesn't have a job, are they not applying to government for unemployment benefits or insurance? Absolutely. So how can that person remove themselves out of government when that's what government provides?
Absolutely. Well, my thing is trying to make sure you're not allowing the government to finance your whole entire life. As long as you're giving somebody the right to feed you, you're giving them the right to starve you as well. People are living their whole lives off the government systems. It was at the day the government decide, well, we're gonna cut food stamps, we're gonna cut this and cut that. What we gonna do? We have people out here living off those systems. So I believe we in teaching our people how to go survive without the government. That's my big.
But again, though, you keep saying I'm trying to understand. You keep saying how.
Can you hear it? Okay.
How to survive without the government. You act as if a young Black boy who comes into your program will not interface with government in any way. They will interface with government still driving down the street. They will interface with government trying to get a driver's license. They will interface with government trying to get a voter ID. They will interface with government trying to apply for financial aid to go to college. So they're going to interface with government in many ways. The point I'm saying is, doesn't it make sense that Black folks should be engaged in a political process to where we are impacting policy that also impacts us? Or are you saying that doesn't matter at all?
I only believe that we should breed politicians in our community that we raise ourselves. People that are funded by white Democrats, white Republicans alike. If you were funded by anybody white, I don't believe you have the best interest of our community at all. I don't care who you are. Whether you be Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, Kelly Loeffler, or what's his name? Other guy that was running.
All right, so you get the gist of like the conversation, but the guy, he's a 21-year-old. He built a school, and essentially his argument, because they're pushing in these voter writing laws that are really Jim Crow-ish, and he was saying, we don't care. Why should you care about a vote when you could just build your own government, right? You could build your own business, build your own school. I'm doing it. And Roland Martin is like, do you not know a high school diploma is a government document? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, where like it's and then the guy, so pretty much after the argument or the debate, he has a panel, and one of the guys, he talked about how Elon Musk, right, was funded by NASA, and how that SpaceX thing that he is doing, right? Because he gets a lot of, he's an entrepreneur, he doesn't need anything, right? He's a billionaire. No. And then the guy's like, what are you talking about? Like, they need the government. The billionaires need the government. So it's this concept of feeling like economics can just get you all the liberation is just not true.
It goes both ways. And also the government needs the money, and the sponsorship of the people. Government without the people doesn't exist. And I think like he was saying it was very interesting that he doesn't need the government. Well, the government can put you in jail, and that's it. The government can go, health inspection, close your school. So, yeah, that's very scary that he has that mentality, and also he had the financial power. So he needs to really get educated, because, like, come on, son, everything, the taxes that you are paying. If the government doesn't want you to have a Black-owned school, they will put the taxes higher up, or they will destroy you with the policies, and you won't have any school. I can't believe that this is actually a conversation that we have to have, because the 21-year-old was saying that. Wow. Oh.
But he started a school, right? And so what happens is that, when you do a good deed, right, that's great, but you can't be, what happens is that the ego, right, that ego gets to, and then you just feel like, I don't need nothing, right? We're self-sufficient. When Roland Martin is like, okay, but I'm not stupid, right? He's like, I'm not dumb. Like, I'm not going to say like, I'm going to have a prominent business that I'm not going to vote. Like, that just makes sense, right? That's like walking backwards. And he was trying to say that, but unfortunately you have a large community of people that would just not see that argument as if the kid was being naive, because he was being naive. They would excuse his naivete and just promote what he's doing, instead of really getting to that you actually need, like you said, it's both ways.
That's interesting, because is he being naive or is he being dangerous? Because if you are saying in a public channel, I don't trust white people, you don't have the best interests about me, there must be maybe a white sponsor that could give you a 1 million to your school. Now what? And because you have created a school, that doesn't mean the school is not going to be closed in 2-3 years because you're going to be bankrupt. Because with that mentality, I don't trust you are going to be successful. You need to be able to navigate the world with everybody, and in harmony. If you're going to be segregated in a country like America, good luck to you. How much you're going to be able to grow? How much? If you are segregating yourself as a minority with like no power in the United States, where everything it is controlled by a majority, I want to know, like, what is your survival plan? And not only survival, successful plan. How long are you going to be able to make it that way? We have like groups like the Black Panthers that we discussed in like a couple of episodes ago. And they were, and Black Panthers, they have like also white people was sponsoring them.
Right, they were.
But the government saw them as a threat. Boom, there is no more Black Panther. Well, there is, but they don't have the same impact in the society as it was before. So you have to learn from like the lessons of the past. You need to know how to navigate. But yeah, good luck to the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's summarize it up. This has been a great conversation. I don't know what you thought. I don't know what you think, but
yeah, no, it has been another great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So then let's just talk about what do we think is an effective way to practice? So chapter 5 is practicing group economics. So one thing I would say is it can't be rooted in hate, right? It has to be rooted in. Okay, and then let me ask you this question real briefly. So do you think kind of Claude Anderson has a naivete, or do you think he is intentional with some of his accusations?
He's intentional. But I want to give the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it is like hate. I think it is, I don't know, it's like blindsided. Like he doesn't have that information. He doesn't have the experience of a migrant. He probably is like in a small circle of like Black Americans.
Yeah.
And there's no people from all parts of the world that can tell him like, hey, well, this actually is not happening this way. And this is exactly another example of like, we're all pushing about diversity and inclusion. And diversity and inclusion doesn't mean like only Black communities or like, it is about overall. Because if you change the narrative and, you start like getting Black people goes up and then another minority goes down, there will be the same problems. Like the crime, it will happen as well. The large number of incarceration, it will still happening. So it is a problem that needs to be solved, not replaced with another group of people to be struggle or suffering. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So how do you
because
think?
the system does not work.
What you say? I'm sorry.
No, it doesn't work. The system doesn't work. You don't need to have people. I do understand that there is people that is going to be like in the top, in the bottom, but you can. You have countries in Europe where there is no poverty. There is no poverty, and you can go to other places in the world where people has a guarantee a meal. A lot of kids in America and even in the UK, they don't have access to food. They have to go to school, and that's why like people with like sending food right during the lockdown. You had to go and pick it up the school. So it's not working. It's clearly not working. That shouldn't happen in one of the wealthiest nations in the world. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So conclusion, chapter 5, he says, other groups use our neighborhoods and populations as resources to enrich themselves. If others can become rich off of us, we must think out the box and redirect our resources to our benefits. This chapter provides guidance to communities, organizations, and individuals who wish to work towards fulfilling the vision of a self-sufficient and competitive Black America. And my response to that would just be, again, they're not your enemy, right? And you know, like you were saying about, you know, you better your business, better is my experience. My experience betters your, you know, your business, right? If I have a great experience there, then I'm going to recommend, meaning more people are going to spend money there based off of the experience, not your race, right?
Yeah.
And if that experience is real, right, then we can really, really get the type of, you know, and I think also the relationships aren't there, right? Because going back to what you were saying, he probably didn't have someone that had those backgrounds because he probably didn't have those relationships because maybe his ideology.
And that's the whole thing.
And because of that, right, we end up working harder, not smarter, you know, because if you're in a predominant Black neighborhood and it's most of the businesses are built by immigrants, the worst thing you want to do is be like, fuck immigrants, right? You can't say that because that's not going to help you in the long run. You have to build relationships. You have to build real relationships and be a real human first, and, you know, and then, you know, build from there.
And it's one of the things, for example, like maybe you make more money providing a service for a community that has more cash, more income. And then you can return that and buy a commercial business, and then you can have a convenience store. But then the convenience store can be in, you know, you can hire someone from other community to work in the front desk, which that happens here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, you know, so it doesn't, it is, you have to be open-minded and see the opportunity like outside of like the color of the skin, but then always benefiting the community. So there are, I believe there are like a lot of roads to be able to accomplish that. Not only it, you know, in the physically like Black community. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then in chapter 6, he says, you can now finish how to industrialize chapter. In this chapter, we learn the importance of industrialization played in the wealth building and how laws and public policies prohibit Black people from participating in or benefiting from a variety of industrial revolution. And he says the part of the Powernomics plans require a special leadership to focus on Powernomics empowerment goal. And so we talked about that and how taking on old industries is probably not the model that you want to take on because you're probably not going to get a big return on investment. And and I think also just hearing your criticism, that's just not good business from what you sound for what it sounds like.
Yeah, like for example, when he said like we have to go back to the land. Well, actually, I have seen like I think it was in New York that a lot of people is going to the rooftop and like growing their organic food, which, you know, you have your own customers are living in the same place. So it is about being more creative with what you have and probably, you know, renting a rooftop to like bring like some grain and, you know, like veggies and all that. It's going to be cheaper than you locating to one place, buying like a huge land, and then be able like to maintain the land, to like bring labor. That's too much. You can start in your rooftop and selling what you have. You know what I'm saying? It's just like there are like so many opportunities being created right now. Or for example, like everybody's doing an Amazon store. Maybe an Amazon store or like shipping and dropping and logistics. There are like a lot of opportunities happening right now. Everybody's jumping into the track business. You get 20K and then you have a track. And then if you specialize in one industry and you have a track, maybe what you do the next thing is like you buy the parking for the track. So people in your community that they have the tracks, they can park the place. So there are like always opportunities about being creative. I think like looking into like what has been working until now, we shouldn't be focused. It should be like what is going to work in the future. That is where the money is. That is where the credit is. You know, the past usually is debt. The future is usually credit. Like how you're going to be able to like create that wealth. So
Yeah, because he does talk about getting like debt, right? But then you want to make sure whatever you get a loan in, it's not in something that's going to depreciate in value. You want something that's going to give you money so you can pay off that debt.
mhm.
I love this. I love this. I love this. And then, man, I don't know any other closing thoughts. This was really great conversation as always. Thank you so much for always bringing your perspective. And
Thanks to you for having me and having patient with it, my time, because I didn't know it was like 6.
no, that's fine.
But no, I think in general, I think it's a very good book.
Mhm.
Are we going to talk about chapter 7? Because we already touched there.
Yeah,
Until the conclusion.
yeah. It's just chapter 7. And I think that's it. And chapter 8,
Yeah.
chapter 7, and chapter 8.
Yeah, I think like chapter 5 and 6, I would take it with like a pinch of salt and just getting more the idea, but not really, because yeah, I cannot agree with what he said, but it's still good content,
Don't
which
let
is
this
good.
be your Don't let this be your only resource, right?
Exactly.
Use this and then like other books. Just look at other economists, right? Because if they're all saying the same thing, if this is like a blueprint, then maybe we're wrong, right? But then if there's a different idea, take that as well. But basic economics is basic economics, right? Supply and demand. You got.
Yeah, that's not going to change.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
I would love to know like someone who is actually working with this in terms of like creating their own roadmap.
I told you, Dr. Boyce Watkins.
You need to send me that information because I don't know who is it. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew who was like Roland. I saw him before. But sometimes I'm bad with names because so I see them one time and then it doesn't pop. It's not in my environment,
Right.
so it's difficult
I
to
got you. I'm
retain.
gonna get you hip. I get you. I got you. Let me get you hip, and I would love to hear what you think about Dr. Boyce Watkins for sure. Cool. All right. Well, this is we almost done. Took a little while, but we in it, but I feel like we needed that break so we could rest up, and now we was only an hour, I think, and we got a lot. We talked about a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's just great. But thank you for having me.
Of course, sis. Of course.
And then episode 7 and chapter 7 and 8.
Yep,
Hopefully.
chapter 7 and 8. We're talking about politics. Is there anything special we want to do for these last 2 chapters? Because we are there's a Powernomic assessment checklist. I don't know. Maybe we should look at that as well.
Yeah, I will definitely take a look. I'm sure there is going to be like some surprise questions.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's do that. So let's take the assessment, let's see what we get from there, and then and just talk about the key takeaways as well. So let's come up with some key takeaways from the book, what to keep in mind, what to take with a grain of salt. And in all, though, we do understand that economics is power. And economics is just making sure you keep your dollar in your neighborhood and you recycle that dollar on a consistent basis, right? What businesses you want to support. He did read this in a book. He said this in a book about, when you about to say, for example, today we're about to remodel our kitchen. So we bought a bunch of materials, about $1,000 worth of materials, right? I want to make sure I'm intentional with who I give that money to. And that's just because, I want to make sure it recycles back in my community, right? And
we should spend with a purpose.
Right.
So if we're spending, we should be mindful and spending on a purpose, like funding, And I think like that is, if we change the mentality and seeing ourselves as a micro investors, then we will be more careful of like how we spend the money. And we will think we are not spending, but we're investing in our community at the same time. So it's a big difference, but that is like what we should achieve as a community worldwide. It is of like, no, I'm investing in my community. And no one should say no.
Absolutely.
So,
What's the news in the UK? How's it going over there?
well, tomorrow pubs and stores are going to be open
Okay. All
for
right.
months.
Okay.
So everybody's going to be like turning up. I'm going to be like, you do you, because I'm not vaccinated yet. I don't want to be exposed.
Right.
What else is happening? The Prince, the Duke of Edinburgh, has died.
Yeah. What? So who is that? Is that like a cousin, or is that a family?
The Queen's husband.
So, oh, okay. So, what's the name of the province? Is that the correct term?
Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Edinburgh is a place in Scotland, and
Okay.
he's a duke. But he is a very controversial character because he had, registered like a lot of racist remarks, and on top of that, he had like a lot of like affairs. So there is a small population in Papua Guinea that they believe that he was their god or something like that, because he went to visit them, and I don't really know how that conversation went. And obviously, if these people believe that you are their god or something, you have probably told them some shit. So I don't really know how that would happen. I will really be interested. And probably, they're not going to open up about like, this is what happened. We went there and we told them like XYZ, and we took the piece of them. And because he's a royal persona, there are like a lot of things are not going to be really analyzed by any expert outside, So yeah, he died 99 years old. And the Queen is a widow now. So
yeah, was he's the one that unfortunately, didn't he have like his family members had ties to Nazis?
Probably, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Queen's husband, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you watch the show, it talked about his background and how his family unfortunately was affiliated with that. I may be wrong, but I do remember it.
No, I heard that. I don't know if it was the Duke or yeah. I mean, surprise. No, I'm not. Like, come on. Like that's not a surprise at all. That's an obvious.
Wow. And it's sad Megan's not going either. Well, I guess it's not sad because it's not her family, I guess. But I mean, we know why she's not going.
Well, Megan is gonna go. He is probably the one who says something about if his kid is going to be. And it was something happened so we had an inquiry, right? And the government created like this committee. There was a lot of Black people included. And the result is that they believe they haven't found any facts to support the statement that UK doesn't have like any institutional racism. They say that they say like there is no facts that in the UK there is the existence of any institutional racism. At the same time, you have the Duke of Edinburgh, who was a racist in the royal family. That is an institution. Now, you tell me, like, they really want us to be, it was very upsetting because when you said it's not racist, then racist people have the power to act crazy because it's not racist. So you don't have the protection of the government. And now we have like Black woman dying like 5 times in childbirth, more than white woman.
Mm-hmm.
Or like we have COVID-19 that killed like mostly the minorities. We have like a large proportion of the incarcerated population. It is Black or like any Black background. And at the same time, we have the government saying like racism doesn't exist. Why? Because they use a term called BAME, Black Asian minority ethnic. So when you use that term, the Black experience, it is not heard because you have other communities like the Asian that is doing very well.
Right.
Well, it's doing way better. So that gaslight what is happening in the Black community. That is not what is happening in the Asian community. So yeah, we're interesting. We continue surviving.
I would
And
love
that's
that.
it.
I would love to get that survey. That's a powerful survey. They just and the survey ended racism. The survey ended up.
And that is exactly what I said. I said like, so we went from slavery ended, the trade ended in like 180 something. By the way, there is a building here that it was 1846 or something like that when it ended. I don't know when slavery ended because it's a lie anyway. So there is a building was built in 1897 in my neighborhood, which means at that time, slavery people was still, being an enslaved in the Caribbean and in the US. But then all of a sudden we passed through 1897 or whatever time is the slavery trade was officially eliminated in the UK. We passed to 2021. Racism doesn't exist. How?
Oh, where's Sway?
How? I'm like, yo, this is like, this is like Will Smith doing like the thingy.
The remote control is this?
No, Will Smith in Men in Black. Did you forget?
The memory thing, yeah, the memory clearance.
Yeah, they're just like pressing the memory pain for us to like, no. I'm like, bro,
Exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, gaslight, put everything. Yeah, so.
Cool.
Another story.
Really good. Thank you so much. And we're going to do next